actually, and the problem we have is that this government builds highly complex systems that end up masking corruption or direct accountability. But it seems like you set up a false choice, which is either the system stays as it is, or we add additional rules that make it more complex. Isn't the alternative to fix the system so that it's simpler and has clear lines of accountability so that we can actually identify and hold accountable individuals who engage in corrupt action?
So we're always looking to improve on the system. I think that would be a mistake not to do that. In this particular case, my comments were to the effect that, as the Auditor General mentioned, the rules were not followed here. So that's different than, so building, I've got 30 years experience, building a bunch of red tape on top of processes because there's something bad that happened is, in my mind, not the solution here. The problem is that we need to make sure that the compliance of the rules gets respected.
Right.
So that's what the actions will be.
I agree with you that making the system more complex isn't the solution. We need the system to be clear, to work, to hold people accountable for what they've done wrong. But that does mean pretty substantial changes, including changes in leadership. Now, I want to put a fine point on this. Your department, Treasury Board, actually sends the checks for arrivecan, right?
Send the checks?
Signs the checks, pays the expenses.
No.
Okay.
No, not at all.
Okay.
No,
okay.
The department would approve the actual payment under Section 34. So there's someone that validates.
Okay.
And then the check printing actually happens by the Receiver General.
I'm getting process aspects mixed up.
So tomorrow, PSPC.
But you're approving. So do you, to put a fine point on it, do you know how much was spent? I mean, are you able to answer the questions?
Listen, the Auditor General went through the files.
Right.
She did an audit, and she found, that she wasn't able to trace all the financial records. So, no, I don't, obviously, or else I would have given it to her.
Hence the problem. Chair, I want to move a motion now, and I'll explain after I've moved it, that the committee report to the House that it calls on the government to prohibit any government employee from simultaneously working as an external contractor. That is a matter at hand motion. I've sent an embargoed copy to the clerk who can distribute it.
Thank you. Just 1 second, please.
What's an embargoed copy?
Members have received that motion, and I certainly welcome all members to send motions to the clerk before they are tabled, just to move things along. You're not, of course, required to do so, but it does prevent. And again, you do so, the clerk will process it. And in this case, as in others embargoed, I won't know about it, particularly when I'm doing my job up here, but it does help move things along. So we have a motion on the floor. I see Ms. Shanahan, your hand is up.
Sorry, I want to speak to it as well.
Okay, pardon me, Ms. Shanahan. I'm going to go back to Mr. Generous. Ms. Shanahan, is this, I'll come to you in a moment, Ms. Shanahan. Mr. Generous is correct. He did not relinquish the floor. Mr. Generous,
Point of order, Mr. Chair.
Yes, Ms. Khalid.
I believe Ms. Shanahan's hand was up. The motion is still being distributed to members, and I would appreciate hearing from Ms. Shanahan before we...
As would I, and as I corrected myself, Mr. Generous was clear. He was not relinquishing the floor. He just was signaling to make sure members had the motion so they could review it as he was talking to it. So, Mr. Generous, you have the floor, after which I will happily go to Ms. Shanahan. Over to you, Mr. Generous.
Thank you, Chair. The motion that I have moved deals with the situation that we have recently heard about in the Arrive scam scandal, which is that one of the contractors was given $7.9 million as part of the arrivecan process, and for what work we still don't have clarity on. But the Arrive scam scandal led to this contractor, Dalian, receiving $7.9 million at the same time as this person was an employee of the Department of Veterans Affairs. The Department of Veterans Affairs, by the way, also gave money to this company. So you have an employee of the government whose own department, as well as other departments, is giving money to his contract. Now this is absurd. As I said earlier, the reason we see any contracting out is based on the idea that the government doesn't have the internal expertise to perform a particular task. So why would the government, contracting out on the basis that they don't have the internal expertise to do something, contract out to someone who is also a government employee? It makes no sense. It allows individuals to double dip. This shouldn't happen. I had asked our witness today directly, are there rules that clearly prohibit this practice? He answered to the committee that there are not rules that clearly prohibit this practice, that there could be an evaluation around a conflict of interest, but that in his words, it is not disallowed. I think it should be disallowed that you have somebody making money both as a government employee and as an external contractor when they're being externally contracted on the basis of the alleged lack of internal expertise of government. So I would hope that this motion would have the agreement of the committee, and I think it's important in light of the evidence we've heard to send a clear message to the government that this policy, that this type of practice should no longer be allowed. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Genuis. Ms. Shanahan, you have the floor.
Well, thank you, Chair. And again, we see a colleague, member of this committee, pulling a stunt, whether it's at the top of the meeting or at the end of a meeting, in such a way where we're already meeting 3 times this week. We've met numerous times before, and I'm sure we will continue meeting again. The question was posed to the witness regarding practices in the ethics and conflict of interest that is pertinent to government employees, whether they have a dual employment, whether they are working somewhere else, whether they have contracts. It's not something that I personally think that we're going to settle in a prescriptive motion of this kind. We're public accounts. We study the Auditor General's reports. We look at what has been done and what can be improved. And in fact, it is something that may well merit a larger motion to go to a larger study. I would suggest not necessarily and very likely not this committee, but I would ask Mr. Genuis and other members to please take the time to consult the members of this committee before springing on these kind of last-minute motions to us. And with that, Chair, I move to now adjourn.
We have a movement to adjourn. Clerk, please call the vote or call the roll call.
Shall the committee adjourn? Ms. Bradford.
In favor?
Ms. Vandenbeld.
Favor.
Ms. Kelly.
Yes.
Ms. Shanahan.
Yes.
Mr. Okori.
Yes.
Mr. Genuis.
No, absolutely not. We're in the middle of debate on this important motion.
Ms. Block.
No.
Madame Sinclair Desgagnés.
No.
Oh, sorry. My apologies.
Madame
Ms.
Cousy.
Cousy.
Against.
Madame Sinclair Desgagnés.
No.
Ms. McPherson.
No.
5 yeas. 5 nays.
Debate will continue. I'm seeing no speakers. Clerk, please call the vote.
Shall the motion of Mr. Genuis carry? Ms. Bradford.
No.
Ms. Vandenbeld,
No.
Ms. Khalid,
No.
Ms. Shanahan,
No.
Mr. Okori,
No.
Mr. Genuis,
Yes.
Ms. Block,
Yes.
Ms. Kuzi,
In favor.
Madame Saint-Claude de Gagny,
Oui.
Ms. McPherson.
Yes.
5 yeas, 5 nays.
I'll break the tie. I vote to proceed with the motion. Vote in favor.
Point of order, Mr. Chair.
Yes, Mrs. Khalid.
I'm just, or maybe clarification, I'm just checking to see how much time we have in the room. I have obviously other obligations in my constituency office. I would love to meet my constituents who've been waiting for me
Sure.
for a while. So just wanting to know how long we're going to spend on this motion.
It's just passed, so the motion is done. Mr. Genuis has about 40 seconds remaining.
Sorry, this meeting, I mean.
Mr. Genuis has 40 seconds remaining, and then we have Ms. Bradford, and then we will be done. Ms. Genuis.
Although I would welcome the extra time, I do believe the rules involve that if I move a motion, I'm done with my slot.
No, I've consulted with the
Oh,
clerk
have you?
on this. You're welcome to to end.
I will.
but,
Mr. Houpe, has your minister asked any questions, asked for any briefings or information? Have you provided any advice regarding this practice of double dipping, of people working as contractors and as employees at the same time?
So the minister asked me, as I said earlier, questions about the findings of the Auditor General. I have yet personally to speak to her about that practice, to be fair.
Okay, she's clearly seen it in the news, I hope, so you haven't heard from the minister or been asked for any further information on this particular issue?
Not specifically, no.
And that is your time, Mr. Genuis. Ms. Bradford, you have the floor for 5 minutes to end this out. Over to you, please. And Ms. Bradford, you're on mute.
I believe,
Yes.
I believe it's, unless Valerie wants the time, I believe we made a deal that I would be taking the time.
Okay.
Absolutely, Ms.
Sorry
Shanahan.
about that.
No trouble, Ms. Shanahan.
not.
You have the floor, and the clock's not yet started. So over to you, please.
Well, thank you very much. I welcome the meetings that we are having on this topic. It's a very important topic. It's all about finding out what happened and how the public service can do better as we go forward. I am not happy about direct prescriptive directions to the public service about what or what should not be done, certainly not prior to a fulsome study on the topic, which is why I and my colleagues voted against the previous motion, which again was sprung on us without prior discussion, without looking for a way, which we have done in the past, looking for a way to frame a motion which does not normally fall into this committee's remit, not normally in our mandate. But we have found ways working with all the parties to put together a motion that would indeed represent the wishes of all members of this committee, because this is a committee that works normally on a consensual basis. And it is very disappointing to see it being instrumentalized, used, and weaponized by certain members for their own, I guess, social media purposes. But on that note, my concern is with producing a list of people without any context. And I would like to hear Mr. Houpe and the Auditor General on what they think of this motion. Thank you.
Honestly, I don't have any comments on the motion. This is outside my my pay grade here, so I'm going to leave the system take care of itself from that perspective.
Auditor General.
Again, I'm not going to tell the committee how to carry out its business. What I can tell you is that there are rules that already exist around public servants needing to disclose whether they have other employment income sources. And that disclosure is meant to ensure that there isn't a conflict of interest with the duties of a public servant and other duties that they may have. I would argue that it's a situation where the rules need to be enforced. And so it starts with awareness, making sure all public servants are aware that the rules exist, that the disclosure happens, that the dialogue happens between a supervisor and an individual. And then finally, that once a decision is made, whether other employment is allowed or not, it's well documented so that there are no situations of ambiguity. That it is very clear that a public servant should not do something that would impede their ability to be objective and fair as they carry out their responsibilities.
Well, thank you for that, because I think that is the reassurance that we need, that the rules are in place, that proper procedures be followed, and it is not for the political arm to start telling to start governing, to start micromanaging the departments and the procedures of the public service. I think it has been said here before, we have a public service that is second to none, which is why it's even more important to find out who are acting contrary to that, who are the bad apples, and how we need to address those problems going further. And Chair, you did say that this would be the last slot, but I'm afraid I have to move on as well, and so I move that we do now adjourn.
Well, you are done, so do you want me to take a vote, or do you want me to excuse the witnesses? You have moved it, so you've moved it, so go ahead, Clerk.
Yeah, let's do it.
Shall the committee adjourn? Ms. Bradford.
Yes.
Ms. Vandenbeld.
Yes.
Ms. Khalid. Ms. Khalid.
Apologies, I'm deciding whether I want to continue on this very important topic. Yes.
Ms. Shanahan.
Yes.
Mr. El-Khoury.
Yes.
Mr. Genuis.
No.
Ms. Block.
No.
Ms. Kuzi.
Against.
Madame Saint-Cloud de Gagné.
Oui.
Ms. McPherson.
Yes.
7 yeas, 3 nays.
Can I thank the witnesses or just adjourn?
Your turn, you're supposed to adjourn.